Hello, everyone. Trust you're all doing well. I am your host, Davis Rajan, and I welcome you to the On Deck Your B2B podcast. Today, we have a very special guest on this podcast, Kaz Driver. Kaz is a marketing pro with tons of experience running marketing campaigns and strategies for companies in the finance domain. We will hear more from Kaz on marketing in the financial accounting industry. I will now hand over the stage to Kaz to introduce herself in more detail for the benefit of our audience. So, over to you, Kaz. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yes, not too bad at all. I have been in marketing for what seems like forever. I'm old enough to remember before the days of the internet, days of when faxes were an exciting addition to the daily work technology. So I have seen such a huge change in the way marketing is undertaken, and so it gives me a lot of pleasure to be able to share some of this knowledge. I'm sure there's a huge amount of people who think that there was never a time when we didn't have computers and the ability to turn around work within a few hours. And I can remember the days when it would take days and days to get things sorted out, when you would have to have photos taken and you would have transparencies that you then had to physically send to people. So yes, I've got lots and lots of experience that hopefully I can share with you today.
Wonderful, Kaz. It really helps because you have such wide range of experience across so much time. And this is what our audience want to hear. In terms of how things have transformed, changed over a period of time. So, um, let me ask you this, right? So, how do you think marketing itself has transformed over the last couple of decades in the accounting and finance industry itself? So, if you can take us through that a little bit, it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it has changed within the accountancy and finance sector in the same way that it has changed across many other sectors, and the where you would normally or you would traditionally market. It used to be much more straightforward, to be perfectly honest. Sometimes much harder to reach a very specific target market, but you would originally we would use things such as print. There were loads and loads of very targeted publications, and you would have invariably a number of different publications within each sector. And we still have this now, but they tend to be online, and it's very rare you're going to find a printed magazine or printed brochure. So the printed publications have moved online. You had exhibitions, and we still have exhibitions, and they're still really important. We would have, the outdoor advertising, which is still the same, and TV, which you wouldn't have used TV advertising to reach very specialist um, markets like this, because it was very broadcast. You would more use possibly radio, possibly something that was around a program that would be of interest to your target market. The really big change has been how much easier it is to reach your target market, who you're trying to get to, because of the multiple channels to reach them. So you've got, as I say, you've got the publications. So you've got Accounting Web and publications like that, which accountants will use. But you've also got chat rooms, and so you'll find places that accountants and people involved in the finance industry will go for information and the opportunity to discuss with their peers. And that's also somewhere that you can now go to reach those people. But there are so many different channels now, or routes to market, that it can become really complicated. It certainly was, when I first started in marketing, an awful lot easier to identify how I was going to reach my target market, because there were fewer places that I could actually reach them, that I could get to them. There were fewer places. Whereas, say, now there are so many different places that accountants and financial professionals will be, that it actually can become really confusing. And sometimes you just have to think, okay, there is too much noise here. I need to find the most relevant place that I'm going to be able to reach those people, or or actually sort of like go to them directly. So using channels such as LinkedIn, or Facebook, or umpteen other different social media channels where you're able to profile and reach accountants or particular accountancy practices of a particular size. This ability just didn't exist when I first started in marketing.
Right, and obviously there is too many choices, right? We are spoiled for choices now, and that's also a problem sometimes, right? You don't you have to make the choice first. So are you saying that marketing is become more challenging now versus what it was a few years back?
Yeah, absolutely. It's become more challenging because there are so many different routes that you can use to reach your target market, and it takes time. It takes trial. It's easier to test things. It's easier to try things out. I mean, it would cost. Say you wanted to do a brochure. When I first started out, you would have to create and print that brochure, and that brochure was produced on plates. So you had plate costs, you had lots and lots of different costs associated with producing that brochure. I can produce a brochure myself now. I can produce a PDF and I can send that out to people, and I can measure whether it's effective or not, and it will cost me my time and some software. So the ability to do things is a lot easier, but then it's the time it takes to trial the different channels to work out then which one is going to deliver the results that you're looking for. And that's the harder thing. And you may find or specialize in a particular channel, and then something else is developed. And keeping on top of the market, on the opportunities that there are to reach people, is also another challenge. If you're a person that's working on your own, you don't have a team of people behind you. Trying to keep on top of all the different routes to market, the different ways that you can reach your target market is difficult in itself. So from that perspective, it was simpler. There were fewer routes to market, fewer ways to reach the market that you were trying to get to. But as I said, it potentially was costlier because it wasn't electronic. It was physical things that you were creating.
Yep, absolutely. And we have the problem of plenty now, right? So as you rightly said, there are many things to test. While it's become easier, but there are many things to test, and then that's a lot of hard work. But having said that, what channel do you think currently works best for you overall? Or rather, let's say within the finance domain, what channel do you think really is giving the best ROI?
That I mean, we work as an agency providing marketing services to our clients, and the channel actually will depend on how involved that client wants to be. So, as an example, there are some accountants and finance professionals who use LinkedIn in a way that they are driving their business through LinkedIn, and they are doing that from their own personality, from their creating their own brand. So they themselves are the brand; they are the expert that people are then buying into. So, as an agency providing that service to a client, we can't do that because we are not the brand. We can market the business, but we're going to market it in a very different way because we're not that person. We're not that personality. I suppose it's a bit like people becoming influencers within that profession. They are experts, and they've built that expertise over a period of time. They've built up the followers. They will start off with a small number of people, but by providing information and expertise that people begin to rely on, and they then turn that into, as I say, their brand that people will buy into and then buy their services. So for some accountants, which is where we specialise more than finance professionals, then LinkedIn is absolutely the a fantastic route to market. Whereas you will find some, some of the software companies, for example, which are particularly successful in exhibitions. So it really does depend on your business and who you're trying to reach, and how you are marketing yourself. So I say from our perspective, we work very heavily from a content marketing and SEO perspective. So we help our clients to build their client base through either organic search or paid search. Which if you don't want to be the personality, if you don't want to spend your time on social media, then that is a really, really good and effective means of building awareness of your brand and building your client base. And that you can be really targeted with both organic media and certainly with paid search to ensure that you are reaching the type of client that you want in your locality or your particular client type or size. So it really, it's how long is a piece of string as to what's going to be the best way for you to reach your client. Because the first thing you need to do is understand how involved you want to be within your own business, and then who you are trying to reach. And once you've identified who you're trying to reach, it's actually far easier to then map out how you're going to be able to reach them.
Absolutely, and I think some of the points that you touched, especially your strategy depends on the type of customer, as you mentioned, and what they prefer to, right? So, um, and if we look at marketing right now, what about B2B marketing has really surprised you of late? Is there anything specific that you can talk about?
Well, I don't know if anything's particularly surprised me of late. I mean, I think B2B marketing and B2C marketing have become more blurred. But I think it's sometimes people forget that B2B marketing, you're still selling to a person, and these aren't fast moving goods. These aren't glitzy or frequently aren't glitzy products. You're selling something that somebody needs within their business to enable them to deliver their own services. But you are still selling to a person, and an awful lot of the aspects of B2C marketing are actually still relevant. You still want to make that product interesting. You still want to make it sexy. You still want people to be interested in it and to understand what the benefits are to them and to their business. So I don't think anything has particularly jumped out that's changed within B2B marketing. I just feel that there is a greater awareness and understanding that it isn't that different to B2C marketing in the general way that you approach it and the messaging, and the sorts of things that you should be considering when you're undertaking that marketing.
Absolutely, and you know, if you look at what's really happening now is that there is a lot of technology inclusion in marketing now, right? So, I kind of also see that to be one of the challenges where um, customers have to deal with newer technologies, right? So, if you look at automation, all that coming in, so it also becomes very important for as I understand, marketers to keep themselves updated. I was just wondering is there a place that you go to where you refer and learn about the new marketing trends, technologies? How do you keep yourself updated? This will really help our audience to kind of go there if there are some resources that you can refer to where we have a lot of marketing materials over there which are very relevant for today. So if you can point us in that direction in terms of what you do for yourself to keep yourself updated, it'll be great.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and so a huge amount of the information that I have comes from there. I attend a lot of their webinars. They are, they're quite an interesting outfit because they were actually very much behind the curve, and they've had to completely change and reinvent themselves almost to keep themselves up to date. But now they are really good at helping me to understand all the different changes, from things like changes in Google Analytics, and the changes that there are going to be from the information that we can gather from cookies and things like that. So, from a technical perspective, if you're not a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, then there's some other great places like Hubspot, which provides loads and loads of really good, useful information about what is going on across the whole raft of channels, and the different opportunities that there are, and keeping you up to date from a technical perspective. There's also some sort of like smaller organisations that specialise in certain areas. So I follow a number of influencers or experts within social media marketing, for example, which I mean, trying to stay on top of that is almost a full-time job in itself, in understanding the new platforms that are there, whether it's going to be relevant for the client type that you're trying to reach, and also seeing how platforms change. And if you look at Pinterest and how that's reinvented itself, or Instagram, platforms that started off with a sort of a particular objective or a particular target market, which have then realised that they themselves need to generate revenue, so they change and become more relevant for you, and trying to reach your target market as well. Or you need to be on top of them to understand whether they are going to be relevant or not. So there are lots of a huge amount of different places that you can get information from, and it is really a matter of spending a bit of time looking and finding people who are providing you the information that you want, and that you can select it. I mean, another one that I found particularly useful is the Federation of Small Businesses, which they run lots and lots of really useful information about what's going on. I mean, it's targeted more for business owners themselves, because they need, if they're doing their own marketing, to help them to understand. But generally, if you think the FSB has got such a broad amount of people that it has reached to, that it also pulls in that knowledge and expertise. And so I've attended quite a number of different webinars that they've run, everything from changes in email marketing to legislation to, I mean, the whole thing around GDPR. There's so many important things that people need to be aware of from a technical perspective, but also from a changing legislative perspective as well. And if you are not keeping on top of that, then I mean, obviously there's a risk associated, in addition to being behind the curve or not actually being in a position to maximise the opportunities you have from a marketing perspective.
Absolutely. And some of the resources that you mentioned about, Kaz, are these specific to a certain region, country, location, or are these global resources that our audience can go and refer to?
Yeah, I mean, the Federation of Small Businesses is a particular organisation, or within the UK. Hubspot is international. The CIM, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, is an international qualification. And there's lots of other, I mean, there's some good publications as well. So Marketing Week. I'm trying to think of some of the others that I don't use as much now, because I tend to rely on the ones that I first mentioned. But I'm sure most countries will have publications, or say websites, more online publishing more than printed, that will have regular up-to-date information. And I would encourage anybody, we should never stop learning. We should always ensure that we're learning, and even if it's just refreshing ourselves on how things operate, how things work. We forget a huge amount of things on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis.
absolutely.
Sometimes it's really
Yeah,
good to revisit something and think, oh crikey, yeah, I haven't actually done that for a while. Let me try that again. So absolutely, it's you finding out what's good within the country that you're based in, and ensure that you're attending webinars regularly. There's so much free information out there, which is great.
absolutely. And the reason I asked you that, Kaz, is because we are recently talking to customers of Undeccio who need marketing help for real estate business and finance business, and it for them to keep themselves updated, they always keep looking for resources. So given that you've provided all these examples and resources, I'm sure our audience would like to kind of refer to those and make a note of it. Um, so so having looked at where we are in terms of or where we should go looking for information that can help us, um, what is your advice for accounting and financial companies of today in terms of what they should be doing in terms of setting up their marketing strategy so as to acquire more customers? So if you can brief us about that, it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I touched on it earlier. I think that the first thing you really need to understand is who your customers are and where they are. And the narrower you are in your targeting, actually, the easier it is to reach them. And that doesn't mean that you have to cut out everybody, but to start with, if you're trying to reach everybody, you're invariably going to use a scattergun approach, and that's just sort of like, "Hi, I'm here. Come and talk to me. I've got what you want." Whereas if you think, "Well, okay, I particularly want to reach this market." So let's say your accountancy practice, and you decide you want to target medical practitioners. Um, you can then work out how to reach those practices. So that could be, you may think, well, okay, I want to reach them in this particular locality. So I don't know, it could be a small locality or a big locality, but let's say you want in a county, or if you're America, in a state. It's going to be far easier for you to find out who they are and where they're going and where they're getting their information than it is trying to reach anybody. So I say you can target by business type or customer type, client type, or you could target by the actual locality that you're in. So if you're an accountancy practice and you're based in a particular town, then you can use things such as Google My Business. I mean, that obviously it's universal, so you can use that in any country to help in search, so that when somebody searches for accountant near me, or accountant in Berkhamsted, or an accountant in California, then the more you've done from a search perspective, and the fact that you're on Google My Business, and Google My Business will, if you've optimized your Google My Business account, then you've got a better opportunity of being found. So start by who you're trying to reach and how you're going to get to them. Then be clear about yourself. What are your USBs? USBs? USB. I don't think you can have a USB. Your unique selling propositions, USPs, not
Right.
USBs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And everyone say, "Oh, I'm different." Well, what makes you different? What makes you stand out? And if you specialize, then actually that helps you to stand out, because you will then develop an expertise about that particular client type. So you can then start talking directly to that client type. So if you've decided that you want to target doctors or vets, then you'll have a better understanding about the issues from an accountancy perspective or a finance perspective that particular client type has. So your communication then will be very specific, and it means that you can make yourself stand out because you actually demonstrate that you are talking directly to that person. You then maybe need to think about the sort of language that you want. How do you want people to think about you? Do they want you to be really approachable? Do they want you to do they want to feel, I'm sure you'll want the trustworthy, but how else do you want them to think about you? What sort of language do you want to, you think you should be using to make the client feel that way? You're talking about trust. So how can you show people that you're a trustworthy business? And there's lots of ways you can do that. The most typical ways are testimonials on your website, and make sure they're genuine testimonials. Don't make them up, because if people discover that, then you're certainly not going to look trustworthy. But also there's things like Trustpilot, and there's lots and lots of other things like that, Google testimonials, things like that. So make sure that you ask all of your clients to give you a testimonial, because people look for these signals. If people are making decisions and buying online, then they don't have the friendly person, or the person in the shop, or to make the decision. They're going to be making decisions by looking at your website. So think about the different things that you can put on your website that gives trust. Talking about websites, make sure your website is up to date. Make sure it hasn't got typos on it. Make sure that it's working. I mean, we had one client who came to us whose they had a contact us form that didn't work. So, if you don't test your website, then you're possibly not going to know that your contact us form doesn't work. And a website can be a real asset to you, or it could actually be sending people to your competitors' websites because it just looks so awful. So there is sort of like a logical route of and different steps that you should be taking, and one of them is, how should I be talking to my the client that I want to attract? What sort of language should I be using? Am I friendly and open? Am I really professional? Am I, all the different things that you can think about, and think about the language that you're using in your website and other promotional materials that is going to convey that. So it's going through a logical stage of, who do I want? Where do I find them? What is special about my business? How can I communicate the information about my business? And how can people see that I'm a trustworthy, reputable business that they want to deal with?
Absolutely, Kaz. This is, this answer was like a marketing university, right? You touched upon everything that possibly should be taken care of. Whether it was specializing in something, the right language and messaging that you have to use, build trust, and of course the website. And I think there is an article that probably you've written about, getting your websites updated as well. I will request my audience to have a look at that as well. So I think what is also happening is that I feel that organizations are also feeling the pinch of not being able to get the right resources to do the right marketing jobs, right? And marketing is huge in terms of domain, and specialization is going to be key. You need to have a niche as a marketer, right? So what I'm also seeing is, off late there is a huge trend of freelance marketers who are coming up, and organizations are trying to engage them. And obviously Ondekyo is a platform which helps B2B marketing experts engage with customers on a freelance basis. So what do you think you should, as a freelancer, do if you want to look at B2B marketing as a freelance career option? Do you have any advice on the freelancer side as well?
Well, yes, and you're absolutely right that the breadth of services, and also the knowledge and the expertise, the technical expertise that you need. I mean, I mentioned Hubspot, which is actually a software provider who provides CMS systems and sales systems and a whole range of different systems. But they are just one, and there are so many different systems out there that you can specialize in one particular software. You may then minimize your opportunities, and this is actually not the fault of the freelancer with all their knowledge and expertise, but actually the issue from a client perspective, because a huge amount of people and businesses and people in businesses know that they need marketing services, but don't actually fully understand marketing nor how it works. And you'll see people with jobs that are absolutely everything. So they want somebody who can come in, that can do the marketing planning, that can actually then do the creatives on social media, that they can increase the followers, but that they can also use software to create brochures, that they can use Photoshop, that they can use a whole raft of different systems and technologies, and have just a huge amount of knowledge. And nobody can be all things to all people. Or, you can have general understanding, but I think it can be very difficult from a freelancer perspective. If you are very, very specialised, I think the jobs that can come in can be much fewer than if you've got a bit of that you'll take a broader range of work opportunities. And so I'm not suggesting that freelancers should turn themselves into jack of all trades, and there are certain specialisms, which is great if the person wanting their services fully understands their services. So what's great is if you are going to work with somebody in a marketing department, and there's a marketing head who has an understanding, and they know they need somebody who's got really good skills within email marketing, and you are an email marketing specialist, because that's going to be absolutely fantastic. But what you may find is that you're going into an organization who wants somebody to do email marketing, but they're also going to want you to provide all of the collaterals that go with it, that they're going to want you to know how to use the software to create whatever is going to be needed within that campaign, as an example. And so I think for freelancers, it's actually quite difficult to ensure that their services or they have the best opportunity, because it's going to depend on the client. And I appreciate I'm not really answering this question, because I suppose I'm sort of like thinking it through in my mind, but also understanding what it's like out there when you've got a skill and you want to use that particular skill. To find that you may end up being taken on by somebody who doesn't fully understand what you do and what that skill involves. And I think it's therefore really, really important to be clear up front with people when you're promoting your services about what you can and can't do, so that you aren't left in a frustrating position having conversations with people where they want you to do umpteen other things as part of that particular specialty. But that you'd also make sure that when somebody really wants your specialty, that you're going to be of most value to them. Does that answer the question? I appreciate I'm being a bit vague here, but I think the difficulty is there are so many elements within marketing, and there are so many specialties that it can sometimes be quite difficult, I think, from a freelancer to make sure that your skills match what the person who is looking for you is actually asking for.
Right. And I suppose what you're also trying to say is that have a broader understanding of the B2B marketing domain itself, but have your top three skills. And, whenever a customer is approaching you, be clear of what you're good at and what you're not so good at, right? In terms of marketing, so that the customer can expect the right things from you. So that's what I
Yeah.
understood from you.
Yes, it is. It's being broad enough in the services that you offer, but also being aware that frequently the client is actually doesn't have a full understanding of what they're looking for, and you may almost have to educate them in the initial conversations to get a clear understanding of what exactly their requirement is and how you fit in, and yeah, being upfront that if you haven't got that particular, if they're asking for some software skill or something that's aligned to what you do, that isn't something that you can do. But it may also be worth having a network of people who provide aligned skills, because it could be something then that you say, well, I do this, so I can do this bit. But if you're actually also wanting this, then I can provide that full package. But you're working in tandem with somebody else.
Absolutely, and I think as a freelancer, you'll probably need to know where you stand and know yourself better than anybody else, to be up there in the market and communicate to people. Um, so, Kaz, with all the knowledge that you provided, all the nuggets that you provided on this podcast, I'm sure people would like to reach out to you online. What's the best place to find you online?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kaz Driver, or you can have a look at our website, which is Think Little Big Marketing, and that's thinklittlebig.com. And yeah, we'd love to help anybody who is looking for some assistance with their marketing from a website or an SEO perspective or PPC or say across a whole range, really. I mean, I suppose my knowledge is so broad that we may start out with helping somebody with their website, but then that expands to exhibitions and content and PDFs. So yes, I would love to hear from anybody.
Perfect, Kaz. It was a pleasure having you on this podcast. There is so much that I've learned from your experience. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. No, it's lovely to have the opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kaz. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.